ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Bird's Brain Podcast. Wait, hold on just a second. Anyways, today, little something, those are a little unnecessary. First of all, I want to address, I don't even know how to put this, but there's a situation at hand that I'm like, I don't know how I feel. Okay. Okay. There's a situation at hand that I feel like I'm not, fully okay with because I was kind of, not a bad person, but I was like, I should really, start doing better about that. And that's, my week off from uploading. I realized I took a week off from uploading, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was, filming a lot over the 4th of July weekend. And then before that, I was thinking about, filming ideas and then getting stuff together for the company in total and the events I have to go to and all these things that, I need to have to do within the next month or two, and I was like, I can just put the podcast off. It's fine. But really, I probably shouldn't have done that because I need to take it more important. But I guess at the end of the day, that's kind of a little bit nonetheless. I guess the situation is not that important because I only missed 3 episodes instead of 2 or 3 months worth or whatever the fact. It's really, I guess, not that big of a deal at the end of the day. But let's jump into something a little bit more important that does not consist of me talking poorly about myself. First of all, at the end of the day, shout out to the people 100% that support me and watch the videos, do all of the things. Because at the end of the day, I'll give a little story and then I'll give you kind of what I'm talking about here because it's not going to make any sense for a long time. But it's just a situation of the people that support me make me essentially kind of who I am. Because I think a lot of us in the world that we live in, with the amount of social media and everything that life has to offer, especially with influence of famous people and whoever you're around, in certain instances in life, you can feel like a nobody. Your position in somebody else's life doesn't matter, or even just a position in your own life doesn't matter. And so, shout out to everybody that makes me essentially, feel wanted in a sense because they, give me feedback. They tell me that the podcasts are great and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And there's some that are the podcast is boring. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because I just, it's just me rambling on about absolutely nothing for 45 minutes to an hour. But I think the biggest thing that I think about most of the time when I'm having either of those conversations, whether it's the boring conversation or that it's that this is an amazing thing and that they support me 100%. At the end of the day, I always remember a video that Gary Vee made. And he was talking to this girl and she's like, someday I hope to be somebody like you. And Gary stops her and he's like, listen, you are somebody. You're not just a fly on the wall. Your story is just as much and just as important as anybody else. Just because all of a sudden you don't have $1 million and you don't have all the fame and the fortune and whatever, and you're not well known by every single person in a 150-mile radius, that doesn't mean you're not somebody. Because, you're the author of your story. You're the one writing the book. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of the times we forget that, we are the ones writing the book. So when we're transitioning into the next page of the book or the next chapter, that page is blank. That section is blank. We get to write that story ourselves and figure out, what the next steps for ourselves are. And so a lot of the times it's hard to just fathom, one of the scariest things for me a lot of the times is the Sunday scaries where you're scrolling on TikTok and all of a sudden it gets depressing, or it's a random Tuesday afternoon and those kind of things just pop up and you get in that, you start to feel some type of way towards yourself or a situation or a past event or something like that. And then you essentially feel like a nobody. You feel like a mess up. You feel like not all the way to the extreme of certain things, but you're just like, why does it matter anyway? And that reassurance at the end of the day, for me, be able to like tell myself, like, one, above all, God loves me, and God loves you as well, and He'll never do anything to hurt you. He'll always support you, all of those things. But number two is that I am somebody. I'm creating the best future for myself. You are creating the best future for yourself, whether those choices are agreed upon by those around you or not. That's still, at the end of the day, is you writing your story the way you want to, not the way somebody else wants you to. And I feel like at the end of the day, so many people, even myself, and I catch myself probably doing it more times than I'm not, is just letting other people influence the things that I do, helping me make decisions that I don't know, what I need, like, what is the right answer? Well, the right answer is whatever I pick, because that's my choice at the end of the day. That's my life. And whether somebody else likes that decision or that choice is not my responsibility, essentially, at the end of the day. Because just because I made them feel some type of way doesn't mean that I need to feel some type of way. Because back to the root of it all, it's your story. It's my story. A lot of times I can make bad choices. I can. But those consequences, 90% of the time of a bad choice, I face those repercussions, not somebody else. And the worst part is, when you make a decision influenced by somebody else, you still, at the end of the day, have to face those repercussions for the influence that somebody else had on the decision that you make. And you may not have been okay with that at the end of the day. You may not have been, perfectly sound in that idea and wanted to weigh out your options. But you still had to move forward. And they honestly, like, at the end of the day, could have moved on from you and felt some type of way, and then there they went. They're gone. They're out of here, and life is forever changed. But, at the end of the day, I think the moral to it all is, like, just understand that you are somebody. Understand that you are the one writing your story. Understand that all of the choices that you make, if they're thought out thoroughly, if they're processed all the way, every single decision you make in your life, one, it is towards God's plan. It'll always work out. And you have to tell yourself that it will. But two, that you are so in control of your own life that nothing else matters. But nonetheless, that's a lot of the times a concept that many, many, many people just, for whatever reason, cannot understand. And I honestly, at the end of the day, get a lot of hate for that, because of the simple fact that, who I am at the end of the day is not a hard ass, is not a complete doo-doo butthead, however you want to say it. I don't see myself as that. Deep down inside, I'm the type of person that is 110% a people pleaser, and I want to never say no. I always want to go along with it and just see the experience and how everything's going to work out. But there are a lot of times that I have to take a step back and, like I said, understand that that's my story. And if I want to say no, I can say no. And I definitely think over the years, within the last 10, 15 years, have changed for sure. I've started to say no, not a lot, but more often. When I'm not comfortable with things, I say no, whatever. But it just, to me, it's a concept a lot of people can't fathom. And, at the end of the day, change is another one. 90, I don't even remember the statistic now, and there'll probably be like some people that'll flame me on or whatever, but I want to say it's like 90-something or 80-something% of people just do not enjoy change whatsoever. I mean, me personally, in my life and what I've experienced, it's like 100% of the time people do not like change. It's one of the situations of like, we're going to make a change to something, and everybody's like, no, why would we do that? Why would we make a change? Because life is just so simple doing it this way. But it's like, guys, there's a better, easier option that's more efficient. But we don't want to take the efficient how do you even say that? Like we don't want to take the efficient way for the simple fact that if it's not broke, don't fix it. And a lot of the times I like to adapt and say that, change is a good thing. And I feel like sometimes back to it, saying yes all the time is like my way of like my change. Because I think at the end of the day, one of my favorite things in life is spontaneity, which is like being spontaneous, which is being like kind of essentially like the yes man every single time. And it's like my buddies are like, oh, you have this idea. And I'm like, I'm in the back, like rummaging through the crowd to get to the front. And I'm like, yes, that is an amazing idea. Let's go do it like 5 minutes ago. Let's go like right now. And spontaneous has just always felt so natural and normal to me. And I guess I could be contradictory to the fact that kind of in certain circumstances I'm not okay with change, or situations essentially, I guess. Like sometimes at work I'm like, no, like why would you, like I understand you think you have a more efficient way, but the wrench only turns one way or the other. It's not, you can't, don't, like, in that situation, like, with like, don't try and reinvent the wheel in that situation, because that's the most efficient way possible. So stop being dumb about that. But that's, you'd have to, like, work where I work to understand that situation. And the people that I do work with and they watch this, they're like, oh, yeah, it totally makes sense, bro. Nonetheless, change is definitely a hard thing for a lot of people. And I'm not like a philosopher. I went to school for like philosophy, and none of it. It's not a situation of I'm so like profoundly educated on this situation, this scenario, this conversation, that I'm like, this is the truth. I'm not a psychologist, but I know from life experiences that a lot of the personal things that I talk about are personable things I talk about, like change and all those, like what goes on in the mind. Me having one of, if not the craziest minds ever, I can understand. I can somehow, some way, possibly after an hour-long conversation that could have only taken 5 minutes, get my word across, and you'll understand the idea that I'm talking about. And that just, sometimes I guess at the end of the day, which this doesn't correlate at all, but sometimes at the end of the day, I just look at people, and I'm sure that there's so many out there that could like genuinely just 100% like thumbs up agree. Sometimes you just have to look at someone and go, some people's kids, man. Some people's kids. There's no way that you thought that through with your thought process and went, yes, this is the right answer. But like I always try and tell everybody, like I always try and explain to everybody, if it happens 2 minutes after, if it happens an hour after, if it happens in the moment, give them grace and forgiveness for the simple fact that they may not have the information that you have. And a lot of the times I'm hard on that issue because I can be, top notch about some certain things. I can be pretty, how would you even put that? Like, I'm very, very hard-headed in my situations of, how can you be this dumb? I've thought this through 1,000 times in the 5 minutes that we've been doing this task, and you haven't thought about it once. How can you be this dumb to not understand that it needs to go this way instead of this way? And then, short time after, in the moment, I'm like, grace and forgiveness. They have to have that because of the way brains work, the way that information is relayed, the way that they're, experience, all of the things that come into factor. And then at the end of the day, you also turn around and you go, Jesus loves them too. So why am I being so hard on them? And I think a lot of the times I don't. Like, it takes me a minute. And I feel horrible about it after. Because I get into the situation where I'm very hard on people, where I'm very like, that's the word, cutthroat. I'm like really cutthroat in this situation. Because, there's a lot of the times that my brain sees situations that maybe aren't so volatile as like the most volatile thing in life. So my brain sees it as time to get cutthroat and tell people, how can you be this dumb? And then I have to take a step back, obviously, and understand that, Jesus loves me the same way that they do, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think we've talked about it in the past before, but I'm not sure. I know we've talked about it like when I talked about the truck scene and stuff like that, and like just the conversation of like working hard, the work ethic that they're, we've talked about like the hard work and dedication. Having dedication is motivation, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, it's like this. I look back on, being, I guess, kind of like high school era, like senior in high school, right when I got out of high school, because I think it was like 7 or 8 years old when it was the first time that I went to like a job, obviously paid under the table, straight cash, non-tax, but whatever. I don't even know how none of that works. It's besides the point. But at the end of the day, my first job consisted at the ripe age of 8 years old, and it was because my dad gave me the opportunity to learn how to work hard doing construction. And it wasn't like, you're going to go like work for 18 hours a day and blah, 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 blah. It was like, you're just going to go do a regular 8-hour shift with me. You're going to help me, bring me screws, bring me the hammer, bring me the drill, all this stuff. And you're going to learn that just because you brought me 5 things, you don't need a 15-minute break all of a sudden because you've barely done any work. And I think the main point to this conversation now, when I look back on those situations, right out of high school, having, I guess you could technically say like my first big boy job where you're working with other members of society that have been, in the workforce for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, how long they've been there. You're with natural adults now that are tax-paying citizens with full families and whatever, but you're at this job. And my understanding when I came out of high school and got my first big boy job was like, okay, you want to earn your paycheck, you're going to have to work as hard as possible for that paycheck. There's times, obviously, if you're blue collar, you can slack off because it's hot outside, it's cold outside, the conditions are horrible, whatever. Sometimes your boss likes to take a little bit more breaks than everybody else, blah, 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 whatever. But you're required, or you should feel required, even if it's not like a prevalent thing where your boss is like, I want you working hard 24/7. You should feel that within inside of you to be like, yes, I need to, when I get to work, I'm going to work hard no matter what until it's time for me to go home. And then I'm going to go home and continue to work hard so that will reflect even more at work. But when I'm looking back, at the people that I come out of high school with, I look back and I go, wow, there are a lot of people, and I couldn't blanket statement this because I am so like biased on this situation, but my generation, I think just as a whole, is so bad about work ethic, about working hard, about keeping a job, about, just being the person that shows up to work hard. And obviously you have to address the situation of like, there's the certain individuals, because I put myself in this like specific category of people within my generation that understand what hard work is, because, our parents did spank us. Our parents always told, like, they weren't scared to tell us no. They taught us what the values of life, what was right and wrong, all of these things. And then you look at somebody else in the same generation that wasn't parented the way you were parented, and you go, again, back to the conversation, you look at them and you go, are you serious? There's no way you are this dumb. Like, I know life was not that hard on you for you to look at this situation and go, oh my gosh, I cannot do it. This is so hard. Because now I look back and, I can get into it some more, but now, looking back now, especially with the job that I have, working in the oil field, like, it is a physically demanding job. It is one of the most, like, in my opinion, most intense jobs that I ever had. And we can say, like, across the board, all blue-collar jobs, very hard work. I think jobs in general, I give a lot of people grace, because I think all jobs in general have their specific niche of difficulty. because, I work in blue collar, but at the same time, and I'm probably going to get so much hate for this because I feel like people will be like, oh, you're just being nice. This is genuinely the way that I feel. But working blue collar sometimes is not as bad as being like a barista. And I'm gonna I know this like sounds crazy, and I know it's like, but I feel as if it's the situation of the difficulty for the job, the situations that you get put in. Blue collar is like, okay, for me and my job working in the oil field, it's clock in and we'll tell you to go home when you go home. Or if it's a slow day, you can go home at 5, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you're at the mercy of your boss and the work that you're doing. Barista, obviously, it's a set schedule. You work this time to this time. But a lot of people don't understand the concept of watching these people work. You get into the situation where, compare the two. You take a barista and you take me that works in the oil field. Here's my pros and cons. My cons, away from family, working long hours, all of this, blah, blah, blah. And you can't say the same about a barista because, again, they have a set schedule. They work a specific amount of time. They're structured to 40 hours a week, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Me in blue collar, I work out in the heat. I work out in the cold. I work out in the worst conditions possible, and I'm just told to get it done. I have deadlines on absolutely everything that I do, and I should always, always do my best possible when I'm out in the field, best possible work possible. Best possible job that I can do. And then here we go, back to the barista, same conversation. But here's the differences where I think that a lot of people don't think about, like, your difficulty in the skill sets are the situation of this. A barista gets into a situation where 30 people walk in. Their expectation is to have those people in and out as fast as possible. So their expectation for that time being when they have a rush like that is this. Make those drinks as fast as possible, but they better have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted and absolutely perfect. Because if you have a customer come back, they're going to, one, ask for it to be remade, ask for a refund, ask for a manager, ask for sometimes a gift card, whatever it is. So then you have, as a barista, that expectation to do your best job possible, to make sure that you are doing your job to perfection. And that's in a rush with people waiting on you, with, a full house. You got to make sure that you take their order, make their order, get the money, and get them out of there with a smile on their face. And obviously, at the end of the day, we can get into the semantics of the conversation and be like, well, that's only if you love your job. That's only if you want to be there. But it's not, because of the expectations, because of working hard, having the work ethic. And so I can say at the end of the day, like, a lot of people aren't going to agree with me. But at the same time, like, stop, again, like we've talked before, stop coming into this conversation with a preconceived notion and agenda that, all of a sudden, just because I'm blue collar and I work outside, I work harder than everybody else on earth. Possibly that might be true. But at the same time, have you ever been in the situation of a barista with 30 people in one line trying to, get them in and out of the door satisfied so you don't have any problems? It's the exact same thing that happens at my job, but mine's a little less volatile because my good job is repetition, routine. And although you can say, oh, baristas, whatever, but you're not getting into the conversation of the specific add-ins that people want, all the specialty orders, blah, 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 whatever. Sometimes skill sets, sometimes some jobs are sometimes some jobs are more difficult than other jobs based on the skill set, based on the circumstances and the semantics behind it. Now, I'm not saying like blanket statement at the end of the day, every single job has its same difficulties. And, me as an oil field worker, I could go be an accountant or a secretary or a barista or work at a snow cone stand or all these things. Could I? Probably. Would I need trained? Absolutely. Flip the coin over, reverse the roles. Take somebody in those positions, secretary, accountant, barista, snow cone worker, dog groomer, whatever it is, and have them come do my job. Could they do it? Probably. Maybe. I don't know. It's majority of the time a man's job, so women would have a very difficult time, but they could be trained. They could learn how to make things work. It could be a situation of that. And so, like, back to like pump the brakes, bring it all back. I just don't understand. Because one, we need to open our eyes to understanding that every single job has a different skill set. But before all that, understand the work ethic. Understand what it takes to work hard. Understand that, there's no way you're that dumb. And we go, oh, you're rambling. Oh, you're rambling. Buddy, you're rambling. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Yeah, but it's like, at the end of the day, am I crazy, or can you not fathom that conversation because you're so full of yourself? How are you that dumb? Doesn't make any sense. But back to the conversation of my generation and the whatever. Okay, at the end of the day, my parents disciplined me probably more times than they should have. I probably deserved it. But just the conversation of working hard, having work ethic. My generation is like the worst. And nothing makes me more upset than watching a boomer like look at me and be like, group me in with everybody else and be like, you don't know how to work hard. You got soft hands, boy. You ain't ever worked a day in your life. And I'm like, dude, I just, 33-hour shift, 24-hour shift, 18 hours straight, couple breaks in between. I didn't even get my lunch break. No, I'm kidding. But at the end of the day, they're just like, I think that the situation of life and work and whatever, and blah, 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 it peeves me and it blows my mind. Because I think at the end of the day, it's all across the board as well. It's not just my generation that does know how to work hard. It's all across the board. But how do we not understand that concept? How do we not understand any of this? That's the part that y'all just go ahead and blow my mind to smithereens, because it makes, maybe it's just because I can't fathom it. Maybe whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a situation of, is it biting off more than you can chew? Is it just being able to fathom the idea? Is it just being able to, understand the position people put in for the circumstances of their life? Whatever. Grace and forgiveness. Grace and forgiveness. Give it to everybody. Give it out. Hand it out like it's free candy. Like the 4th of July parade. Bah, 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 bah. Anyways. On to something new. This last weekend was 4th of July. It was so fun. America turned 250, whatever. We filmed that video. We did the fireworks. But I think the funniest part about all of it was, and I don't even know if he watches these, but I'm just going to go ahead and rant about it, because I think at the end of the day, it's kind of funny to me. Because, I can see both sides of the coin. I can be like, oh, yeah, I understand why that makes you upset. But I can also understand where maybe you're kind of being a little bit of a diva. But it's all right, because I still love you anyway. We were at I don't think I want to reveal the location. We were at an unknown location, lighting fireworks, because I don't want to name drop and do all that stuff and get up. Dude, what is crawling on me? Ew. Okay. Anyways, I'm not gonna name drop locations and people and whatever and who was there, for the sake of, if anything ever happened. No, nonetheless, we're lighting fireworks, and we started off slow. We start off slow. We start off simple. Whatever. It's one or two choop, 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 whatever, right? And my boss Fez is next to me, and he's like, mind you, we have probably have a good 45-minute to an hour show worth of fireworks. And I had my hands full, he had his hands full, his kid had his hands full, 2 other guys had their hands full carrying this stuff out there. And we were doing it in the dark. And he was so upset because he was like, we should have done this in the daylight. We should have brought these fireworks out there and set them up when it was still daylight. Blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, is it really that deep at the end of the day? It's just fireworks, man. Nobody's going to be mad. You're not getting paid to do this. And, I understand you want to pop the fireworks or whatever, but, come on, man. It's the 4th. America's 250. Well, at least, just don't take it so seriously. But I can at the end of the day, I got to understand, the situation he's in, because it's, carrying those fireworks out there kind of did, they kind of sucked. I'm not going to lie. It was some pretty heavy stuff. And nonetheless, if you've seen the video, go back and watch the video. I think it's titled like America Turns 250, whatever. It's the 4th of July episode of the vlogs. It was great. I had so much fun. I could not have had. I eat so much food. Everybody was calling me a fatty. It was the greatest time of my life, and I've never had such an amazing 4th of July, honestly. And that says a lot because the town that I grew up in takes the 4th very seriously. Like the parade and the fireworks and the fair and all that. Best 4th of July in the last 10 years, at least. Maybe of my life, if I had to sit down and actually rank it. But at the end of the day, I'm just with that conversation, the 4th, America turning 250, all of that. Semi-quincentennial. That was my favorite word that weekend. I don't think a lot of people heard me say it because I was a little inebriated, but nonetheless. I think the thing that I love the most is I genuinely love my country, so much, because I'm so blessed to live here. And we could get into the conversation and talk about oh, look at the politics. Look at these gas prices. These gas prices are freaking crazy, man. Did you see the price of oil last week? Man, I tell you what, that's a little bit intense for me. I don't even move out of the country. Yeah, okay, I'd like to see that one. You ain't gonna. Okay. And I think the funniest part to me is again, preface the situation, not red or blue, Jesus Christ is the winner. The people that are I hate this country so much. And then they're okay, then leave. And they're no. It's you hate our country so much, but you won't leave. You hate our country so much that you have devoted your life to talking absolute smack 24/7 on this country. But not once have you ever thought about leaving because you don't want to give up those rights. You don't want to give up your freedom. So I completely understand. You're just, a hypocrite. It's fine. There's a lot of people out there that are. I am time to time a hypocrite, okay? I join the party with you. But not about how bad my country is, because maybe I don't agree with everything that happens, but I can tell you that I do enjoy my freedom. I do enjoy essentially being able to do whatever I want, as long as you follow the laws. I love my country. It's just so amazing. There's no way it could get any better. And I hope you love your country as well. Because if you don't, you're a liberal. You're liberal scum! No, I'm just kidding. You're not. I don't think I've ever understood the concept of okay, this is going to sound crazy, but that situation in itself. It's Republicans, if you get into a conversation with a die hard, Donald Trump is my daddy, all of that, brainwashed Republican. The first thing, if you don't agree with a diehard Republican right off the bat after they bring up something political, they're you're one of them liberals, aren't you? You're one of them no good blue-haired liberals. It's dude, no, I just don't agree with what you have to say because I don't understand why all of a sudden we need to have all of these erratic ideas that make no sense and benefit the people absolutely zero. Okay, makes no sense. But on the flip side of the coin, you get into the conversation with a liberal, you go, and I think honestly at the end of the day, they possibly, if I'm talking about these diehards. I'm not talking about the conservative liberal where it's oh, there are people out there that will look at you and be oh, you don't agree with me? Well, that's okay. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but you should really look into this kind of stuff. But the diehards, Republicans are don't agree with me? You're a blue-haired liberal. You ain't even got a clue what you're talking about. I bet you hate this country too, don't you? And then you get into and then you ask a liberal, have a conversation with them, and then you they're diehard. So then if you don't agree with them, they're like, no, I bet it's because you're. I'm trying to pick a good voice. I don't know what a liberal would look like or sound like. Anyways, it'd be like, I bet you're one of them Republicans. I bet you just love Trump, don't you? And J.D. Vance is your daddy. I don't even know what kind of voice to do with that one, but it's like, there's no way that you can be on either side of those political parties and be so radical, it's not even funny, where you're just pointing fingers at each other. And then at the end of the day, that's like the diehards that just do nothing but finger pointing is the reason that we cannot excel. Like, I'm not saying China's a good country or whatever, or I don't have any biased opinion because I've never looked into it. Like, if I don't want to live there, then I've never looked into it. But like other foreign countries, you look into the situation on like just how progressive they are. Like, I saw in the news a while back, like Russia cured cancer or something to the effect of that. Or it was China or some foreign country had found the cure for cancer, and they're going to start making it public to their citizens through subsidized government healthcare or something. And it's like, where is the U.S. on that scale? Because we're obviously not excelling in that position. We're worried about why the Strait of Hormuz is shut down and what we can do about it. What we can do to other countries and how we can kidnap their presidents and how we can do all these things, because all of a sudden this radical politician, this radical person, this whatever it may be, has this idea in their head that you need to point your finger at this person because they're the problem. So now at the end of the day, we need to go to war and play police instead of excelling and progressing as a country. You know, I don't think at the end of the day I've ever heard of a single country that is so hated. And like the radical Republicans will be like, well, they hate us so much because we win so much. And it's like, okay, so I can definitely tell that you're not highly educated at all. You have not been educated on history, on economics, on human rights, on any of this stuff. Because at the end of the day, here's the situation. You point your finger for why? So you have somebody to blame? Because I feel like at the end of the day, that's the only option left that there is. You're pointing your finger because you need somebody to blame, because you don't know that you're fully right. So somebody has to be wrong. Right? I don't know. You're probably one of them liberals, aren't you? At the end of the day, we just can't progress as a country because of these idiotic morons. Because there's no way you're that dumb. Like, I get so aggressive about that because of me not having political affiliation to none of it. And then, like, it's so funny to, I guess, kind of have those conversations because of the information that's been relayed to me, because of the research that I've done. You know, one of the things that has always stood out to me is like, okay, talk about history in general, this situation. You want to say some things about what has occurred in history from, let's just single out the United States, or no, actually let's go, world is way better. Let's go the world from like 1890 to 2001. Great possible. No, matter of fact, 2011. Jump all the way to 2011. 1890 to 2011. Number one, who writes history? And I just had this conversation the other day, and there's opened a lot of eyes for a lot of people when they have conversations with me about political and historical and economic and whatever conversations. Who writes the books? Who tells the stories about what actually happened? It's always the people that won. You never see the other side of the story where it's like, this is all the bad stuff that happened, and then On the other side, this is all the good stuff that happened. And then here's the in-between, because this was good and bad, but this is what also affected it. And this is kind of what also messed everything else up. You never see that. It's always the victors that write history. It's always like, again, back to the situation, it's like, those are the bad guys over there, so we should probably do something about that, right? It's probably because you're a liberal. Liberal scum. And it's like, can we get to a more pressing issue that actually matters? Into a situation of find out what is more important for the progression of the world. Stop destroying it. You're doing all these things to point your fingers and say who the bad guy is, but we've never said who the good guy was. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the facts, there really never was a good guy. Because of the things that has happened, the things that have occurred. I can talk about so many specific topics where it's like, this is who history writes as the good guy, but this is who actually was the good guy. And then in this situation, there was actually no good guy because everybody messed it up. Everybody ruined it for everybody. And then one day we just woke up and was like, I don't know. I guess we better move on and start something new, start another problem. But again, at the end of the day, this entire episode, everything we've talked about, these are the conversations that nobody wants to have. Because I think at the end of the day, back to the work problem, back to all of these, this entire conversation, somebody has to have the finger pointed at them. Because there has to be an issue. There can be a resolution as long as somebody is the problem. We can't come to a collective agreement. That's never, very rare occasion has that ever happened. And on the other side of the coin, I don't think it's ever ended well either. It's always come out to, we came to a collective agreement, but 5 minutes later, this guy pointed the finger at this guy, and this guy pointed the finger at that guy, and then all of a sudden we had to have a winner. And then, talking about it again, the world's police, the United States, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Oh, we have the biggest military. What about the $39 trillion in debt for the U.S.? Like, okay, you could say the question of like, oh, who do we owe that to? But it's like, why are we sending money to these other countries? Like, when you buy something from another country, pay it and then make sure that they return the favor, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Say whatever you want. But, like, moral of the story, why are you, there's no way that you're this dumb. There's no way. There's no way you were this dumb. And, I think the main consensus, like, before I get out of here, before I finish it all, one last rant for me to go on is, like, above it all, for the answers of every single thing that we've talked about is, group them all together. The world's problem, working hard. How did these cohesively come together to complain about one more thing? It goes a little bit like this. Okay, we're gonna have to slow down for a second because this one's gonna get me like worked up because it's across the board. I think it honestly just applies to absolutely everybody. Industry standards for people's time that they are being paid for doesn't even meet the requirements whatsoever at all. What's minimum wage? Like $7.50 or $7.70 an hour or something like that? At what point was 1 hour of my time worth $7.75 to you? We scream and we preach about basic human rights all the time, but you put a label on me for an hourly wage of $7.75. Oh wait, don't forget, it's plus tips. You're gonna get tips. So you're gonna make so much money. Yeah, well, what about the guy that didn't tip on his $150 tab? I can say that I don't tip sometimes, but that's because service is poor. Because nobody wants to work. I don't want to have that conversation. Anyways, I'm a good tipper now. All right, don't come at me for tipping because I tip 20% or more most of the time. All right. And that's based on if you give me good service or not. I'm a nice guy, I promise. But at the end of the day, the industry standards are not met for the abilities and the work that we do for the workforce in America. I'm talking America only, flat bottom line, because of the issue that we have. The industry standard, the industry continues to grow, but the wages do not fall. They don't follow right behind that. The industry grows, and the standard of wages stays the same. And I'm not gonna be the one to be like, how do you put that? Like, oh, all these people out here complaining just because they don't make $50 an hour. You're just complaining because you don't work hard enough. I'm a person at the end of the day that works in the United States oil field. You can blanket statement all of it together. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, North Dakota, Kansas, Colorado, all the states, whatever, New Mexico, all of these states that have oil field ranges. Industry standard for the jobs that we do, the industry does not follow behind on the pay scale that we have. And I fully believe that it's just that it at the end of the day, for me, it's just a government problem. Because at the end of the day, these employers are having such high costs that they can't cover to pay people more. Because in the situation of, what's happened in the past with us, possibilities of we're too slow, so we're going to have to lay some people off in order to stay afloat. We get really busy. Can guys have a raise? Absolutely not, because we have to recover for the last 2 months, the first 2 months of the year that we were in the red. We're in the black now, but we got to recover for the last 2 months that we were in the red, and then turn around. Oh, everybody wants good insurance. Guess what? We're in the United States. That doesn't happen. $450 out of your check, and guess what? Our employee premium that we have to pay in order for y'all to keep that just went up by another 20%. So guess what? Next 2 months, we're going to be taking even more out of your check. And by God, don't complain about it, because guess what? The cost for us to do these jobs is so high that we're barely making our marginal differences on what we're actually making between what we're profiting, net or gross, whatever it is not enough. And I don't care who you are, government employee, union, self-contracted, just a regular employee, whatever it is. The industry has continued all across the board. Back to conversation. I don't even care if it is. I don't care if it's barista, oil field worker, drill hand, mailman, none of it. I can complain about this all day long and give facts, statements, whatever it is. The industry's growing and the wages aren't. And they haven't been for a long time. And it's because of the position that the government continues to put us in. And I will say, I wish I could talk more, but I know I'm going to dig myself a hole to where I'm not going to remember everything that I said. I'm just, in past conversations, I'm just going to, circle back, and then it's just going to be a whole ordeal of things. And I'm not in the market to try and keep track of, everything that I say, because I'm pretty sure I've already repeated myself, 3 times. Guys, moral of the story, industry continues to grow. The wages are not going up. And it's because of the position the government puts us in with paying foreign aid to other countries. The issue at hand, in my opinion, is this right here. Our government is putting priority over foreign countries and their citizens. And that's it at the end of the day. Our government sees that foreign countries and their citizens are more important than the American people. And I think we've all, woken up to that, and some changes have started to be made. But at the end of the day, it's like the conversation that we have all the time. The president's only there for 4 years. When he first gets in, when on that first day that a new one is elected, they go in and they just everything out the door. The last president, everything he did, let's get that out the door as fast as possible. The progress that we made, let's get that out the door as fast as possible so I can start something new, so I can make it seem that the American people are doing better. But it makes no sense. because the progression is so slow that I think at the end of the day, people now are so fed up that we just can't handle it anymore. And, you know, at the end of the day, I feel bad for the American people. I feel bad for the employers. I feel bad for the employees. I feel bad across the board for all of it. Because at the end of the day, whether people want to believe it or not, we are just pawns in a game for the, see, somebody's trying to get me to not say it. I think Satan's trying to get me to not say this by burping. We are just pawns in a game for the elites. Because, as they always say, the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. Never once have I ever not believed that to be true. And, you know, you could say work hard to get out of it, blah, 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 but you'll never, ever, ever. There's people you don't even know about that have more money than they know what to do with. You think Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are a problem? Let's look at the people with unreported taxes that you don't know that they're trillionaires, but they're trillionaires. And they're running what's going on. But you'll never know about them because they're hidden. They're the people running things behind the scenes, and they're the reason that we're essentially in the position we are. And there we go again, like me. That's my moment of like pointing the finger. That's me pointing my finger. But that's like, read the facts. That's the issues. You know, you can get like all the conversations across the board. Say whatever you want. But that's the situation. That's who I'm pointing my finger at. Is the elites at the end of the day. Pointing my finger. Right now. Haha, gotcha moment. And guess what? You know, it's going to take 10 years for somebody to see this and like open their eyes and see that this is a full. If somebody were to watch this video and go, oh my God, this guy's just rambling. But actually just pay attention to what I'm saying. Really just slow it down and understand. Man, I'm so aggressive about it because I'm so mad. Because of the position we've been put in. 3 generations of my family. Like, that goes back far. And then you got to think about your family for the last 3 generations. But you get into the conversation, you know, you like this is your moment. Back to the conversation of your life. You're the one writing the book. This is your moment. This is your moment to step up. This is break the generational curse of being that person. Move forward with your life. Be the successful one. Put everything out on the line. Bet on yourself. And be the one to create the success for those to come. So maybe at some point we can see some progress. So maybe at some point the right person will be in the position of power that actually needs to be. And then we can see some progress in this world. And we'll stop destroying it. And we'll stop disobeying God. And we'll stop doing all these bad things. And everybody will come to know Jesus. That's my favorite part. I love that. Everybody will come to know Jesus at some point. Every knee will bow. Anyways. I don't think I have any more for today. You know, at the end of the day, I think I'm just like all of it. Like, you can get so aggressive, you can get so mad, and you can say all these things, and you can say, oh, but this guy's just rambling, blah, 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 blah. He's talking in circles. That's what he does. But, dude, like, slow it down. Listen to what I'm saying. Sentence by sentence. Because at the end of the day, we could say that this is, if we don't do something, it becomes and creates a very, very big problem. And, you know, at the end of the day, for as much smack as I want to talk on my generation for not working hard, not that we're the last hope, but I think for the times that we're in, we are the first hope. Because the older generations, they're checked out. They don't want nothing to do with it. They understand that if they just, you know, what we're starting to understand. They understand that if they just follow Jesus, they will make it home to the promised land, and life will be amazing. And now we need to understand that what we've been provided on this earth is what we are supposed to take care of until we are called home. And there's just a lot of people that don't understand that. Because, I'm quirky. I want to be an atheist. Yeah, because that made a whole lot of sense. Your arguments are trash, but nonetheless, I'm not having that conversation. There can be another episode. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, listen. I think I'm crazy. If you don't think I'm crazy at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm crazy. But that's pretty much it. I've said my piece. On to something new in the next episode. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the episode. Thank you so much again. So much. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, the support is insane. And the non-support, even more insane. I don't know why you would do something like that. But listen, I love you. I really hope to see you on the next one. Because I'm so comfortable now. And I've told myself, like, hey, you got to keep going with this. It's kind of working out a little bit. Keep going. Don't be a weirdo. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's the episode. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye now.